There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. We're going to get started just here in a couple minutes. Thanks for attending. We really appreciate dedicating some time to this. My name is Blake. I'm a customer success manager with Concord. My job is to support you guys, make sure that you're getting the most out of Concord. I know we're going to have some current customers and some future customers here on board today. So to all, I want to welcome you guys. Again, our customer success management team, if you're a current customer, we're supporting you. We're helping you make the most out of Concord. If you are a future customer, we'll get to know you soon. Once you're on board, once you start using Concord, we help get your systems going. So we're going to get started here in a couple minutes. Again, we thank you for your time today. People are trickling in. I do want to make sure everybody is aware that we have chat enabled and we have a Q&A. I think the chat is where we really love to engage with you guys. And so I want to direct your attention there. And actually, I have a couple questions. This is something you guys are familiar with in ours, I'm sure in other webinars. But I have a question for you. If you don't mind, go to the chat. I want to know what role you are in. If you could go to the chat, type in what role you're in, and type where you work, where you're located. Would love to hear about that, to hear from you. Also, make sure we know that the chat is working. As you're putting in information into the chat about, again, what your role is and where you're located, I want to encourage you to use the chat as we're moving through this presentation. Don't hesitate to reach out with questions. Let us know if you guys have questions about things we're covering. If we're able to stop, we'll answer those questions live, but we'll definitely make sure to cover them at least by the end of the call so that we don't leave you hanging on certain questions you have. Again, we appreciate you coming. We're going to wait just maybe one more minute to get started as people start trickling in. Great. So out in Arizona, we have a manager for business and financial services. So it's good to see you there. Community college manager of business and financial services. Great. Operations manager at another university. We have two universities represented here. Good to see you both. Thanks for coming. Over here in Austin, it's probably, I feel like we're having similar weather, I imagine. I wonder when it starts cooling down for you guys over in Arizona. Hopefully soon for us. All right. Well, with all that being said, we're going to let everybody else trickle in, but we're going to get started here today on our webinar. I'm going to start sharing my screen and we're going to get started. Again, as we're going through this, please don't hesitate to reach out in the chat. Again, my name is Blake. I'm your guys' customer success manager, or one of them. One of a couple of dedicated people that are here to support you, here to serve you. Make sure you're getting the most out of Concord. What we're gonna do today, introduce ourselves. We have another speaker who's gonna help me out today. But really what we want to focus on is using Concord as a solution, right? We're gonna give you some customer examples for managing cost, compliance, and budgets, and then we'll have some time at the end for some Q&A and tell you how you can learn more. So as I mentioned, my name is Blake. I'm a customer success manager. As a CSM, it's my job to support existing customers. And so I already know, seeing the chat and seeing the attendance list, I support some of you guys here. And then we also have Mike, who's our head of revenue at Concord, who's going to talk about how we use Concord. And so with that being said, actually, I'm going to pass it off to Mike now to talk about our next slide.
Hey, folks, thanks for the time to learn a little bit about how we're tackling the challenge of forecasting using Concord as a contract lifecycle management. As Blake mentioned, I'm the head of revenue over here, but my relevant experience is really the last 10 years. I've been forecasting incremental revenue and renewals as a part of being a revenue leader in SaaS. And so before we get into some of the more detailed elements of how we might be able to solve some problems for the audience here, I just wanted to talk about kind of how the landscape has developed over, the last 20 plus years in software and in document management in general. So we're going way back in time to the 90s here, and you can see that, you know, during the decade from 1990 to 2000, that's sort of when software was slowly becoming adopted across businesses. You know, we're starting to see it much more adoption across the map, regardless of what your application might be now. But digitalization was really the big change in the decade between 90 and 2000. So there was no real CLM. We were just using digital documents in general, maybe a little bit of Microsoft Word. We haven't really gotten to the advent of cloud, which happens in our next decade. And that's where you start to see digital documentation kind of being housed in different repositories, whether that's in Google or in Microsoft, maybe in ERP for some of the folks who adopted software early on. And then as you get into the next decade of 2010, 2020, it was very much the adoption of e-signature, DocuSign obviously being the big brand that we can recognize in that space. But we identify there's a problem there, right? Like the creation of the document or contract, the housing of that. Yeah, there was some solutions for that, but how do you extract the data that's super significant in those contracts, whether that's the term, the cash that might be changing hands, money going in, money going out. And that's really where we see the market going in, you know, the decade after 2020. And we call that agreement intelligence, which is a cheeky acronym also for AI, which is a lot of the way with which we manage the life cycle after the signature. So that's kind of a high level of how the market has been shaped over the last few decades. And what is an agreement? What is agreement intelligence? It's really all the stuff that you can learn after the signature, really put the contracts to work for you and for your use case. So yes, we import the Word or the PDF. Maybe it's signed in DocuSign. Maybe it's signed in Concord. We then extract that data, whether that's term language, dollar amounts, perhaps some clauses that might be variable on some of the contracts that we're extracting data from, with the point of trying to track deadlines and kind of construct more predictable budgets. So all in all, we're trying to capture more value from every contract, not just execute them and then have them housed in disparate places, whether that's your inbox or your Slack, wherever it may be, but really have it in one place where you can actually use consolidated data to make better business decisions.
Yeah, that's right. And we focus on three aspects, right, about your day-to-day lives and what this data can help you with. If we look at the top here in the circles, right, we'll help you with your forecasting and budgeting. And that's why I'll actually have some examples that'll touch on all three of these. We'll also help you with cost management, and we'll help you with your regulatory compliance. And then I actually have some concrete features down below that touch into these, right? So if you're talking about forecasting, budgeting, we have conditional approvals. Like, is this contract over $100,000? If so, it needs financial approval. It needs our CFO's approval. Also, if you have manual, whether you're using manual data entry or automatic data entry, we have convenient reporting that'll surface that relevant data for you to help you forecast and budget. If we talk and look forward into cost management, right, we're thinking more about our reporting and our deadlines feature, right? Reporting touches both of these left two items, where if you have your either data entered manually or automatically, then you can start tracking those deadlines and make sure you're not missing out on money or paying extra money. Right. And then finally, if we look at regulatory and compliance, we have our clause library to help you standardize your language. We have audit trails, but also we have our artificial intelligence that, as I was mentioning earlier, we have manual data entry, which is important and valuable, but we have it. We're able to automate that for you with our AI to give you that standard data entry. And Mike, you actually recently told a story about how you used our AI on our contracts. Like, guys, we're not just building Concord, we're actually using Concord. And Mike, I know you recently used our AI to solve a specific business plan. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about what you did?
Yeah, certainly. You know, so we kind of talk about cash in and cash out as a really, really important element of forecasting and keeping predictable budgets. what I inherited in my first 6 months or so here at Concord was one element of forecasting is our renewal side of things, right? What we understood was that we had a number of different ways with which our customers were renewing and paying for the service that we're providing. It could be an annual term with annual payments. It could be a monthly term with monthly payments. We even had some customers who were on annual terms with monthly payments, right? So we had these three different buckets, and I'm challenged with trying to forecast the renewals of these three distinct customer types in our book of business. And so what we knew was that in Concord and all of the contracts, this data existed, but we did not have that connected into our CRM, which is HubSpot, and the place where we use to track our customer data and inform our forecasts, right? So that was the challenge. How do we consolidate this into our CRM to hopefully realize a more predictable motion for our renewal operations? So we were able to extract all of those disparate term and payment elements of the book of business by bulk extracting through our AI all of those Concord contracts that our customers had signed, and got to a place where we could consolidate those three different buckets into different cohorts that behave distinctly from a renewal standpoint. And so that allowed us in the last 3 months to get within 5 percentage points of our renewal forecast, just by consolidating that data in a single place and then connecting that back to our CRM. So we also have our HubSpot integration, and we are going to be pushing all of that term language into HubSpot via that integration as well. And so it was just kind of a way that we drink our own champagne or eat our own dog food here at Concord. We're using the solution internally to actually try to solve some of our own business pains. And we figure that that's something that might be valuable to an audience like this who is actively trying to manage the challenge of cash in and cash out.
Yeah, that's a great example, and a robust example. And as a CSM, our job is to help you, realize that and get the value of things that you're paying for. And so, if you come on board with AI, what we're able to do and help provide is set that up. But we also have some other examples for customers that are using our AI for their purposes. Last week, just on a call, we had a customer from Way to Be One. His name is Mike Sewell, and what he was doing is manually looking in his contract for life cycle details. He was going in and updating that manually. If you don't know, if we're using Concord, you know this. If you're thinking about Concord, we send you life cycle deadline reminders for all of your contracts so that you're minded of these deadlines, and that's super valuable. But what Mike was doing is he was opening up the contracts, reading them, and then putting details in manually. First off, that took a lot of time. But then also what it did is that there was room for error. And so when he adopted our AI, what he would do is he would just upload a new document and bring it right into Concord. And what the AI is doing is it's scanning this document manually. And what it's going to do is it's going to find not only your start dates, but it'll also look for your renewal details and your notifications of non-renewal. And while it's thinking, it does take a little bit, but the good news is Michael said that it saved him between around 60 seconds per contract. In my opinion, maybe I'm a slow reader, it takes me a lot more, because what you're doing is you're looking for that life cycle needle in the contract haystack. As soon as life cycle details are pulled from our AI, they'll start to populate. And this is an example of a deadline report, right? That'll tell you, you guys have these contracts that are coming up for renewal. And so just to show you what the AI pulls, if I open up the summary panel, which is where we store all that important information for you, the AI pulled this information, not only pulling an end date, but it tells me that it renews, for a period of 1 year. And then it has a 90-day notice, which leads me into my next customer example of Savita, who was struggling with efficient contract oversight, right? So they maybe had a contract that renewed in the December 31st, let's say, with a 90-day notice period. What they were doing is they were coming up on that deadline. Maybe they were finding it December 1st. Already, they're past that notification of non-renewal, so they're entering into that renewal conversation way too late. With this AI, what they're able to do is pull efficiently the notice of non-renewal periods so that Concord can remind them in August, hey, September 31st is coming. You guys have to negotiate this contract. So those are some things that the AI is enabling you to do, and stuff that you can take advantage of right now.
Makes sense, Blake. So basically that highlights sort of the cost management value adds that we were talking about on some of our focus features. What about regulatory compliance? Like, could you explain to us, Blake, how customers are using Concord's audit trails and their search functionality in that challenge?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So that was all AI, but features that are available right now, like he mentioned, the audit trail. We have a customer named Pay who is looking for ways to like track edits, right? They were using Concord not just to store their documents, but also to negotiate their contracts. And they were really needing a source of truth for all of their interactions. And so some of those features that Mike was mentioning that they use, for example, are like our track changes feature. So that if it's on, some people can come in here, they can delete text, they can add text. Whether you're an internal party or an external party, you can have this feature on so that now me as an administrator or maybe the contract owner can come in here, can approve or reject these changes. Moving forward, as he mentioned, we have an audit trail. And what the audit trail does is first off, is it keeps track of events and the times that they happened, which talks about one of our other customers named Grand Vision, who was using registered mail to send out their contracts, just so that they know, hey, the customer received this. They're negotiating. What would happen is they would miss deadlines and incur costly penalties. However, if they use the audit, when they started using the audit trail like Pay, not only could they see the changes reflected, but they could see relevant actions, whether someone added a version, whether or not someone has joined the document or read the contract, right? They're able to see this information. And then what happens, what's really great about Concord is we'll provide you with a signature certificate once it's signed. This document's not fully signed here, but once it's fully signed, we'll send you not only the qualified e-signature information, but we'll have the relevant timestamps in there for you. So it's pretty great and something that we really like to make sure you're aware of, right? And then finally, one thing I just need to make sure to cover here is that we have, going back to Savita one more time, one thing that they were struggling with were just compliance issues and access to documents, right? They had documents all over the place. And this might be the case for you guys. You guys might have documents in filing cabinets in a place like SharePoint or Box. You may have them on local networks. The great thing about Concord is that you can have all your documents in one place, right? So right there, that's valuable. Having your documents in one place, having a central accessible repository, not just to you, but to the people that you grant it, right? Knowing that compliance and data access is really important. We allow you to compartmentalize things. Maybe I want to create an HR folder right here and only give access to my HR and my head of HR and myself. Nobody else will have access to those documents unless I grant them access. And so that's the value of Concord right there, is that you allow yourself to really compartmentalize your data. You can go further. You can even create separate subsidiaries. Maybe I have a separate HR subsidiary that I can't even have access to. Only my head of HR can have access to. So we got some different features available for you guys. And love it. I actually have a question in the chat that I can answer right now. So how do we ensure compliance with changing regulatory requirements? So one thing that's really important to know, right, is that when we talk about this, people, right, we allow you to create templates for documents, right? I recommend my customers create templates so that their NDAs, you can create them quickly with the same language. But let's say, your regulatory requirements have changed and I need to go in and edit that language. It's extremely easy. All that I have to do is I just have to come into a template and start to change that language. Moving forward, right, we have something called a clause library that allows you to templatize specific phrases and specific clauses in your documents. If you go in on the back end and change your clause library, it's as easy as just coming in, editing your document, and inserting a clause from your clause library. It's really easy to monitor. Maybe I have an assignment clause, the regulatory requirements just changed on that. I add it to my documents. So thanks for the question there. we allow quick and easy. Now what I can do is I can just create a draft off of this document, send it out for you. So great question. Yeah, but now that we're actually at a great point to take other people's questions over anything that I've covered, right? Concord, again, we allow you guys to focus on these three main aspects that we covered, right? Your forecasting, budgeting, your cost management, and your regulatory compliance. We now hit our period for question and answer. Does anybody have any other questions for me that we can answer in the chat? All right, Mike, I have a question here. It says, what are some key financial KPIs that companies should track when implementing an AI-powered CLM solution? So phrased differently, maybe how does our CLM integrate with existing financial systems?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the first question, I think we kind of, from a broad aperture, it's very much from my perspective as a revenue leader, going to be predicting the cash in and the cash out. Obviously, regulatory compliance impacts us on the client facing side, so being able to update clauses is super valuable there. But in terms of the KPIs, I think you kind of showed a number of those, Blake. The dollar amount of a contract, if it is, that type of a document that you're sharing. A lot of the life cycle elements that you can kind of show on the right hand side of the window that we're looking at here, which will load in just a second here. But it's all laid out pretty clearly out of the box. The other component would be terms, along with the properties here, which Blake is showing. Net 60, net 30, right? When will the actual dollar amount come in? We know we have a closed one deal, but when's that cash coming in? The same can be said on a renewal. Did we have a discount on the initial term? Are we looking to recover that? Should we anticipate 100% paid on the renewal, or the same dollar amount that we had agreed to in the first contract? So I'm a bit focused on really the revenue elements here, just because that's been my profession. But those are the things that we tend to recommend focusing on, specifically in our implementation phase of new customer acquisition. When customers come in, these are the types of variable content that lives in contracts that we suggest should be tracked in a consolidated fashion.
Yeah, it's a great way to say it. And what we're trying to focus on with the features that we're building are the opportunity for you to standardize your data entry and do it quickly. And so with this properties feature that Mike was talking about, we've enabled you to do that. With our AI, it's going to do it automatically for you. But regardless of which way you go, all of this data will be surfaceable. And that's right where that value is. So if payment terms are important to you, right, you'll be able to see all of your payment terms, right? We only have one document here that I've added them. You're able to see your payment terms. If I have that total contract value property added to my documents, it'll be available in this inbox for you. So really, whatever is valuable to you as far as a key performance indicator goes, add it to your documents, start to record it. You'll be able to standardize that data entry to also make it across the board and make it convenient for you.
Yep. And the follow-up question here was around integrating into financial systems. My experience in the SaaS landscape has been that your CRM is really the source of truth for all of your customer data. So we at Concord are focused on integrating with those. Those include Salesforce, HubSpot, the major players there. And then those all integrate with any financial system. So, our goal is to extract that data inside Concord, pass that into your CLM, and then from there, push that information to the financial systems that might be significant in your organization. The other piece is that we haven't, much like other vendors or other software solutions on the market, we do have an open API. And so if you're looking to try to integrate Concord directly to an ERP or some other financial system, we could skip the CRM element if you don't have one, and we could build something custom to the system that you're more comfortable with using. So largely we can integrate with anything, but our recommendation is to connect this to CRM and then push that data where else you might need it internally.
Yep. Another question in here: do all of your customers use you for e-sign? It's a great question, and the answer is no. As a CSM, I support all range of uses. And I like to say we kind of break them up into two groups. People that just use us for repository. I have enterprise customers that just use us for repository. I have customers that use us for e-sign and repository. Generally, they fall into those two groups. And the good news is you're getting value out of it no matter what. My opinion is Concord as a repository gives you tremendous value, especially with these new features that we have, like the properties feature allowing the standardization of data entry and to be able to surface that easily. With the AI, right? The repository itself is valuable, but then if you include the fact that you also have unlimited signatures on unlimited documents, I mean that's the icing on the cake. So the answer to your question is no. Not all of our customers use us for e-sign, but no matter what, we're an effective tool for what you're looking at.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, we have an integration with DocuSign because we really think that we do such separate things. I mean, obviously there's some value add to providing an e-signature solution, but you know, if you're a company that's already using an e-signature solution across a number of different departments, it can be a challenge to rip that out in a place where, you know, you're focused on really the life cycle management element of your contracts. And so we're not really interested in dying on the hill of e-sig. And it's also why we're more focused on what happens post-signature. If you have DocuSign, but all of your contracts are in different places, you end up being in the situation that I was in and trying to predict our forecast. Like I need to actually extract the life cycle elements, not just know that a document was signed. I mean, that's obviously an important function in business, but in terms of putting the data to use in your day-to-day business operations, it's much more significant to understand a lot of the financial data that we were showing, you know, in the demo element here. So that's why we think that we're actually working side by side with e-signature, which is a really commoditized solution at this point. Our focus is putting the contracts to work.
Right. We have another question, Mike, and I'll take this one. We would want to push financial data from our ERP to Concord, and we would want to push data from Concord to Smartsheets. Is that possible? So Mike actually touched on this earlier. Something that's available to our enterprise plans is our open API, where you can build connections from Concord to tools that you use and vice versa. And so, yes, that absolutely is available to you, and we should connect, and I can give you some instructions. The important thing to note about these type connections, though, is that this is something that needs to be built, and it needs to be built by people in like your IT team. It's something that we can, answer your questions on and help you work through. But it is a tool and a connection that needs to be created and built by a tech team. Here's the exciting thing, though, is that we have a world-class API documentation, right? We have some customers that are doing truly outstanding things that blow my mind as far as like data and information that's being pushed from Concord to their services or vice versa. So let's connect and talk about like, kind of what you want to do, and I can definitely get you started on that. So thanks for the question. All right. Feel free to send some more questions. We're gonna finish up though the presentation because I do want to let you know, what to do with all the information that you have, all the information that we covered today. So if this is interesting to you, if you guys are interested in kind of what we're talking about and you want to learn more, talk with us. So if you're a current customer, reach out to your CSM. You know who they are. If you're a potential customer, book a demo. I know you can't click on that message, but I'll post a message in the chat. We'll also follow up with an email for you. And so if you don't want to go to the chat, just wait for the email that we're going to send to chat with us, right? If there are features that you want to drill down on, if you have questions you didn't feel comfortable asking in the chat, talk to us. We just want to make sure you have all the information.